Welcome back to the show, my friends. I am your host, Eric Szilagyi. If you've had an uncomfortable experience and you'd like to share it here on the show, please get a hold of me at contact.uncomfortable@gmail.com. The world wants to hear your experience. It wants to hear your story. So reach out to me and let's get yours on the next episode of Uncomfortable. If you haven't yet, make sure to like us on Facebook and Instagram, both at Uncomfortable Podcast 65. And if you haven't had a chance yet, listen to a couple episodes if this is your first one. And after you get a couple into you, please make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review. That alone is the one most important thing that you can do to help get this show out into the algorithm and out in front of more people. And with more people listening, you guessed it, that's more great stories coming your way. If you haven't had a chance yet, head over to the Uncomfortable link tree. That's the best place that you can find anything and everything uncomfortable all in one spot. All of my episodes, any links to the YouTube channel, which is growing. So if you haven't gone to the YouTube channel and liked it yet, please do that. Links to the Penford Media documentary series that I'm featured in and other podcasts that I have had the pleasure of being on. So that is linktree/uncomfortable1. And the uncomfortable is spelled like the logo looks, with a lowercase u and the uppercase N. That's also probably the easiest way to find the Eventbrite link for tickets to this year's Bigfoot and Brews and Spirits 2. Tickets are on sale, so now make sure that you go snag a pair real quick. Bigfoot and Brews is quickly becoming one of the premier Bigfoot conferences in Michigan, so if you're interested, the date is September 14th for the event and September 13th for the VIP dinner the night before, both being held at Sister Lakes Brewing Company in Dowagiac, Michigan. That's in the lower southwest corner of Michigan. We're just about 2 months out from the event, so I suggest you get your ticket soon because depending on capacity, this year's tickets at the door may not be an option. Also, in the show notes below, you'll find a link to the online store for the purchase of this year's newly designed Bigfoot and Brews t-shirt. We got a great new design, and if you order it online, you'll have several options that you will not be offered at the day of the event. Different colored shirts, different placement of the logo. You can either get it on the left chest running down the torso, or you can have it smack dab in the middle of your back and running down the middle of your spine. If you're not able to make the event, but you'd still like to purchase one of the shirts, we'd love for you to do so. Just simply jump in there at the website and choose the shipping option at checkout. If you're planning on attending the event, then you can avoid the shipping charges by selecting pickup at the checkout, and your shirt will be waiting for you at my booth at the event. If you ever decide that you want to have it shipped, go right ahead. By all means, it's up to you. This way, I just thought I could offer you the ability to avoid those additional shipping charges if you're going to be at the event. I'll post a picture of the new shirt and design so you guys can check it out. It's going to be a great show this year. We're super excited about it. So make sure to get your tickets now, and don't forget to check out the discount combo VIP dinner and day of event ticket. Those tickets are, I believe, $10 cheaper than if you bought them individually. Those tickets do include your dinner option and one drink free with the purchase of your VIP ticket. So all the info is available for all the various links below. That's the Eventbrite link, the event site for Facebook, and the online store. Tonight's guest is Alecia. She has not only grown up in a haunted house, but also worked in a paranormally active restaurant for 8 years. Those are some experiences that are right up our alley, right, guys? But that's not it. Her current situation, well, I don't want to give too much away. So, if you're ready to get twisted and uncorked, let's get into it. So if you would, please give a warm, uncomfortable welcome to Alecia. Alecia, welcome to Uncomfortable.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Eric. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thanks for being here with us. Glad to have you. So you've had some hauntings.
I have. I always make the joke on our show, Twisted and Uncorked, that I am haunted. My Sorry. My co-host actually has experienced some hauntings of her own. I don't know if I'm related to that at all, uh, but it's definitely ramped up since her and I's friendship began, but I definitely have some stories for you today.
Sounds like you're a carrier.
I might be a carrier. Our mutual friend Kevin likes to think that maybe I have some untapped medium abilities, but I don't like to claim anything I don't know. It's just the experiences that I've had. So,
So I got to ask you, twisted and uncorked. Um, Full transparency. I am busy. I work a regular job. About a year ago, they took away our ability to wear earbuds at work for
oh,
security reasons. So that was my time to be able to enjoy podcasts that I like to listen to.
I agree. I
Um,
do the same thing.
so I no longer have that option. So it kind of sucks because that was not only my time to listen to other podcasts and unwind, but it was also a very good way for me to research subjects by, audiobooks or whatever. But, I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. And I'm still pretty salty about it. So,
You could grow some
but I have,
super long hair and kind of cover that up.
yeah, I think the days of long hair for me are well past. Um, so, but I have got a chance to listen to a few of your episodes, and I do have to say that you and your co-host Sierra, um, now you guys cover true crime, paranormal, cults, conspiracies, but you do it in a unique way where you guys you do have banter, and it is funny. It's not annoying. It,
I appreciate that.
the and I guess the point that I'm making is that sometimes when you have multiple hosts, there's an inherent feeling on their part that they need to show out. They need to like really put something forward because people are listening, and it can be perceived as being really forced. And your guys' relationship is seems truly friendly. The banter is cheeky, but it's you can tell you guys spend a lot of time in each other's ear, and it's witty, but it's it's well balanced. Because I think your episodes pretty much
Thank you.
average about an hour,
Yeah,
and you I know for me, I love to talk. And I've had people leave reviews that I take the scenic route and, I talk too much. Well, it's my show, so I'm going to do what I want. But um,
exactly, as you should.
uh, you guys, you do a good job as far as the balance between the wit and the humor and the banter and to getting to the story. So good job, guys.
I really appreciate that. That means a lot coming from anyone listening, but especially a fellow creator. So, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Keep up the good work. And you guys have been at it for a good while because you're what, around
Yeah.
160 episodes?
Yes, we are releasing our 160th episode the Tuesday following this recording. I'm not sure when this comes out yet, but yes. And then we also have done monthly bonus episodes since we've started a little over 3 years ago now.
That's
And we
fantastic.
also do about 4 Patreon episodes a month. So we're pumping out a
Wow.
lot of content.
Yeah. Yeah, that is undoubtedly a lot of work.
Yes,
Um,
on top of a full-time job, as you can relate to. But when you're passionate about something, it doesn't feel like work at the end of the day, so it's also, like a way for my long distance best friend and I to kind of, get together and talk about stuff that we're both mutually interested in, so go leave
well,
those reviews, guys, like Eric said, it's the best way to spread the word.
it is actually the the number one best thing that you can do. So, um, leave them for me, and then go over and check out Alicia's podcast, Twisted and Uncorked, and leave some nice ones for her. and her co-host Sierra. Let them know that you came from uNcomfortable too. Just put it right
Yes,
there in the damn comments. Say uNcomfortable sent me.
yeah, we do like to know where people came from, so that's always a lot of fun.
So you've had a haunted life, and I guess the best thing is let's start with the house that you grew up in.
So I am born and raised from Victoria, British Columbia. So I'm the Canadian half of our podcast. For anyone that doesn't know, we actually record from 2 different countries. Many people think I'm American. Not offended by it, but that's where I grew up, and,
Well,
I
after last night,
actually
you should be offended by it.
Yeah, you
I'm
did. You
offended by
gave
it.
me the, lowdown on the recent presidential debate, so I heard it was
Good
hard to
Lord.
watch.
Yeah. Anyway,
Luckily for me, I don't have cable, but I do have some ghost stories for you guys. So I grew up in Victoria, British Columbia. I was born and raised on a 1937 farmhouse, and it is still in my family. My aunt and uncle still live there. I have young parents, so they had me and my brother when they were quite young. So, times were tough. We moved in with my aunt and uncle when I was about 6 years old, and we lived there until I was 10. So, in total, about 4.5 years. And they kind of downplayed it our whole lives. And I'm realizing that looking back, especially when I've experienced things now, it kind of takes you back to that time in your life where you're like, "I brushed that off as a kid, and I maybe should not have."
sure.
So, the family that owned the house before my aunt and uncle bought it was an elderly couple, and they had recently had the father of the family, George, pass away. And the woman was completely transparent about it. She was like, "He passed away in his favorite armchair in the living room." We had a really good family life here. It
Is
was
it
him
just
and his
me? Is it just me, or is your voice getting shaky now?
A little bit. Mostly because 'cause I'm nervous, but
But we've been talking for a half hour. You haven't been nervous yet.
as soon as the record button hits,
Okay.
Um, hold on. So, yeah,
I
so
didn't. I
they
didn't say that to call you out. I was just like, is this
it
topic?
also it's hard to talk about sometimes because it scared me, and I put on a brave face all the time, especially when it comes to the show and making jokes like I'm haunted, but it was a scary environment to be in at times, and you'll get to know the 2 kinda spirits that were in this house here. So George was one of them. We referred to him as George the Friendly Ghost. Casper, a little play on Casper for those 90s kids that might be listening, and his spirit was very warm, very paternal, very inconvenient at times, but nothing sinister. But then there was something that seemed to be a little bit darker, but we'll get there. So George passed away in the home. My family was like, "No worries. Like, seems like you guys had a beautiful life here. We're happy to take over from here." And weird stuff would happen all the time. It was my aunt and uncle upstairs with their 2 daughters who are more like my sisters. Me and those 2 girls are both 4 years apart, like, all 3 of us are exactly 4 years apart. And then my younger brother is 2 years younger than me, so it was 4 kids in the house, and my aunt would often have my cousins. She worked from home and would babysit all of us and take us on adventures and that kinda stuff, so it was a really great place to grow up. But some spooky stuff happened that were unexplainable, to say the least. One memory that really stands out to me as a kid was we used to have, I don't know what year they stopped doing them or started making them, but there was those serrated kitchen knives, like the electric knives,
Mhm.
and in the kitchen, it was literally, like, planted underneath the cabinets. You had to push a button to release it to come out.
Yeah.
No, I remember we were all standing in the kitchen one day. My aunt was telling us, what we were gonna do that day or something along those lines, and the knife came out of the holder and fell right into the counter. No one was standing near it, no one touched it. And I remember as a kid thinking that was weird.
I would
And
say.
she would often play it off like, "No, that's just George," you know? That was always her go-to excuse. Glasses of milk would tip over on the dinner table. I don't know if your family drank milk at dinner as a kid.
It was milk there for a while. My mom tried to be like the right kind of mom and, do the food pyramid and make sure you got your milk, but it was quickly replaced with Coca-Cola, and from that point on, that
Yeah.
that was pretty much my life's blood up until about November of this last year. So
Oh, Coca-Cola boy, I like it.
yes.
So, just weird stuff like that. One instance that stood out for George specifically when I was a kid, we lived downstairs in the house, and it wasn't so much a basement suite as it was a ground floor. So, in their kitchen, there was stairs that ran down that went to a landing, and then you would walk outside, across the patio, and then there was another door to our suite. We spent a lot of time, I don't know if you did this as a kid as well, you slide down the stairs on your butt.
I, I did, and I think that's probably why I have tailbone issues now.
Oh,
Because I was
no.
never smart enough to put a pillow under my butt when I did it. It was just bump, 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 bump.
See, that would have been the smart way to do it,
Yeah,
but we decided to elevate that and use a laundry basket.
that's
We
smart.
or super dangerous, I don't know how you wanna look at it, but we would call it laundry basket surfing. And one of us would always stand at the bottom of the stairs because the stairs went to a wall and then curved. Well, when it was my turn to go, no one was standing there. I don't know what they were doing, if they were talking or goofing off or doing something. But I went down the stairs and no one was there. And I didn't like turn on an angle enough so that I was going to run smack dab into the wall. And I think I was probably like 9. The laundry basket stopped. Like the angle of the stairs just stopped. And it almost felt like somebody was blocking it,
Oh,
which was
interesting.
super, super weird. And I remember I'm actually going to ask my cousin about it tomorrow because one of them is coming to visit. But she was like, "What just happened? Like, how are you stopping at an angle like this?" And it almost felt like I always make the joke that George saved me from having a broken nose.
Hmm.
But it felt very paternal, very protecting, very like, "Nope, not today, buddy. You're gonna be
Was
okay."
How old were you at this point?
9.
Okay. Do you remember having a sense that? Do you remember having a sense that there was something else going on, that you should have hit the wall? Why didn't I hit the wall? What stopped me? Or was at that time, was it just like, holy shit, I can't believe I didn't hit the wall? You know?
It was more of a at the time, of reading on their reactions and "Oh shit, I couldn't believe I hit the wall."
Yeah.
But looking back on it and the experience that I've had now, I'm more like, "That was weird." Like, and we still talk about it. My whole family still talks about it. They're like, "Remember that time you almost broke your nose? Thanks, George."
That's
Uh,
strange.
yeah, it is strange, but it's comforting in a way.
Because
But
physics would dictate that you'd have been kissing the wall.
exactly. I definitely defied physics that day, and to a degree, I am very thankful for it. But George had, like, a mischievous side to him, I guess you would call it. For example, we learned this from his wife after the fact because it kept happening, but they would go to bed every night at 10 o'clock. They would turn off the TV in the living room and go to bed. Now, we grew up watching movies as a kid. That was always what we did after dinner if it was, like, a gross rainy day. I don't know about the weather where you are, but here, it's heavy rain pretty much 80% of the year.
Really?
very gloomy, but very green in British Columbia, or at least the 2
Okay.
areas that I've grown up in, because I now live in Vancouver. But, every night at 10 o'clock, the TV would turn off without fail, and my aunt says that sometimes it still does. So I think
Really?
that's kinda funny. Yeah, and that's, like, how old am I? I just turned 31, so yeah.
And your whole family was witness to this? It wasn't just,
Yes,
like, you by yourself?
yes. My aunt would get up and she would turn the TV back on and be like, "This may have been your bedtime, George, but it's not mine."
No kidding. So
She was
so,
a
okay,
very
so
sassy lady.
alright, so you have a how many people in your family, that were witnessing this on a regular basis?
On a regular basis, I would say at least 6 of us. My, parents took turns kinda working the crappy night shift, and we
Mhm.
spent a lot of time upstairs.
So
So,
what was the conversation like with the family?
I don't know, cause like you mentioned earlier when we were just chatting, I was born and raised Catholic as well. My side of the family that we were living with at the time, Catholic. And I don't know if they ever fully believed that it was something paranormal, but knowing that somebody had died in the house kinda gave it, like, an easy out.
Okay.
But there was things that happened after that were darker that I think were something totally different, that they wouldn't explain away in the same jovial sense. It was
Mhm.
almost like, "Oh, we're just gonna pretend that didn't happen." So,
So you wanna
I don't
you
know.
wanna get into those?
Yeah, let's get into those. It's a perfect transition because George did all sorts of goofy stuff, but the darker entity, so in the home, there was, like, the kitchen, my uncle's office, and then around the corner, there was a living room. And then off the kitchen, you would go down the hallway, there was my cousin's bedroom on the left, a bathroom on the right, and then 2 bedrooms at the end of the hall. And then this kinda awkward little linen closet at the very, like, end of the hall. And it didn't actually, you know the movie Coraline?
Yes.
Like a little tiny door. It didn't actually latch by any means, it was just like a show handle, and my aunt would keep towels and that kinda stuff in there. And so that was the designated timeout corner as well, because it was the furthest away from all the activity in the house. So
Okay.
if one of us did something bad and she's wrangling 6 kids, my cousins and stuff included, that was where you would go, where there was no distractions kinda thing, and you'd stand with your nose in the corner for 10 minutes. Sorry, my husband just popped in the room. Um, so I hated going down there, and now the experiences that I've had, I can understand why, like, maybe I was sensing something darker, something more spooky, but it would cause immense anxiety going down there, to the point that I would, like, cry and be like, "Please just, like,
Mhm.
let me go anywhere else in the house. I don't wanna go down there."
Right.
And my aunt couldn't understand why. She was like, "I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of it." She brushed it off to me, just not wanting to go in timeout. I don't know if your family did that. My aunt was a wonderful, wonderful, like, she's my second mom, always will be, but,
Mhm.
timeout corner was a thing back then. And, I remember there being occasions where the hallway would feel really cold, even in, like, the dead of summer. There was times where it almost felt like the back of your head was being pushed further into the corner, and I remember there was a few times when I was standing there, there was, like, a thick shag carpet on on the hallway floor.
Mhm.
Even with that, despite there being no latch on the door would open, like, slightly, like a crack while you were standing there.
So the carpeting went underneath the bottom of the door and into
Yes,
the
so it's
okay.
not like it would just move with, like, a
Yeah.
breeze or movement by any means. Anyone that grew up with shag carpet in their house knows. So, I hated being down there, and I never understood why, and there was instances where we would be eating dinner, and my uncle owns his own landscaping business, so his office around the corner had a landline on it that was designated for the landscaping business, and we never answered the phone during dinner. It was an unspoken rule, we let it go to voicemail. And I remember there was 2 occasions where the phone rang, went to voicemail, and it was, like, unintelligible, uncomfortable static. Like, it was just like, I
Really?
don't I've found clips that sound similar just to kind of, like, explain to people what it sounds like,
Mhm.
but it was terrifying. Like, it almost sounded like like a un like another language, like really deep whisper, or it would sound like a gargling almost, and it was so
Ugh.
weird. And my we had a plug-in voicemail machine that
Mhm.
was attached to the landline, so my aunt would just be like, "Oh, it's probably just, the wiring is funny or something," and she would kinda brush it off. And I don't know if that was her way of, like, protecting us and being like, "Oh, it's nothing weird, everything's fine," or if she truly didn't believe that anything was wrong. I don't know.
I think, like, from from the sounds of it, everybody in that house was experiencing some stuff that was weird. So my guess is that it was her trying to normalize, for your guys' sake, what was going on. And
Yeah, something
inside she was,
completely abnormal happening
yeah,
around the
so
house.
inside she was probably, what the hell is going on? Why are we getting this? But uh put on a brave face
I'm sure
and
to an extent she was a little freaked out too, like, "What the hell?" Like, how do you explain that?
yeah. It's a very
Um
unnatural thing to have experiences like that in the house. So,
mhm.
kudos to those who can look past it, ignore it, or play it off. But at a point, it starts collecting in your consciousness, and yeah, at some point you can't deny it anymore.
And it was kind of like a comforting feeling, especially as an adult now, like me and my cousins and my brother talking about it and being like, "Do you remember when that happened? Yeah, that was super weird." Like it was like a solidified, "Okay, we're not going crazy. Okay, it wasn't just us," or, like it was like a solidarity of weird shit happening in this house.
Right. Well, and you should be thankful that you had a number of other people that were
Yeah.
witnessing in it and experiencing it, because I mean that adds legitimacy to the experiences, and it doesn't help you explain them, but at least you weren't the only one, and questioning your sanity as far as whether it happened or not.
And I'm sorry, I forgot to ask, am I allowed to cuss on your show?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. We're not known for dropping the f bombs every other word, but
No, I just
cuss.
realized I swore and I was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm
I
sorry."
no, I put every episode out as explicit,
Okay.
not because there's language being used, but uh, more of a more of a cautionary, that sometimes the topics we talk about on here um, aren't aren't always for the faint of heart. So
That is very true. Um, in addition to that kinda stuff, like, true horror movie scene, pictures would shift or just fall off the wall in the hallway, that same
okay.
hallway, um,
Did
and
most all the experiences with this, what you say, darker
negative
entity,
yeah,
was it
within
always
that
in that
one
hallway?
stretch. Yeah,
Really?
usually, because like, a direct vision from my uncle's desk where the phone was down the hallway, so I don't know, somebody that I talked to about paranormal experiences said maybe that there's, like, some sort of ley line or, like, something that runs under the house in that area, and I was like, "That's an interesting theory, but I don't know."
Do you know the history of the house at all, as far as what that little cubby was originally used for?
No, we don't we as far as we know, the family that owned it from when it was built used it for storage as well. They stored their Christmas decorations and stuff down there, so I'm not sure about the history of the property itself. Unfortunately, in Canada, things are held a little closer to the chest, and you gotta dig real deep or have some sort of clearance to know, like, certain backgrounds to
Really?
properties and stuff. Yeah, like, short of I mean, maybe some of your Canadian listeners will write into you and let me know a way that I can do it because I would be very curious to know. But I know for a fact that I don't wanna triangulate my family because they still live there, but
Yeah,
I will
don't
tell
do that.
you so you can maybe look a little bit into it if you want to, but the road leading up to the farmhouse goes to a very popular garden center, like a huge garden in Victoria. It's, like, world famous.
Okay.
But the road itself used to be used as a I forget what war it was that my aunt said, but it's, like, sectioned funny. Like, they replaced panels of the road in a weird way. When you drive over it, it's almost like that "dun-dun, dun-dun, dun-dun"
Yeah.
with your tires going over those gaps, and she said that it was used for, I wanna say, like, getting supplies to certain centers during the war, so
Hmm.
I don't know. But it's weird because Victoria's an island, so I'm like, where were they going at war over there? But I remember
Interesting.
she said that it was put in and I think she said during World War II, somewhere along that line. So I don't know if there's, like, a history, because I know that objects can carry energy as well. So
Sure.
I don't know if those slabs were brought from somewhere more sinister. I don't know if people died along that road. I don't really know the full history. But I would be interested to know more if anyone has a way of getting that information, because it would maybe provide answers to stuff that I can't explain, or where there's a light and a dark meet in that house. George was that light energy, and something didn't want him there. Who knows?
I'm a firm believer that you can't have one without the other. You can't have good without bad. You can't have light without dark. I mean, it's natural, right? So I don't know that that's that far off. That if there is if there is an opening where that good spirit can still interact, then it would make sense that that opening would be available to something a little more sinister as well.
I agree with that statement, and my own personal theory is that maybe because George was a father of 3, he had had his whole life there, and then this new group of kids moves into this home, that maybe he felt like he needed to stick around to kind of protect us in a way,
Hmm.
especially with the whole, nose saver moment. Like, I think that he was just a very warm, protecting spirit is the energy that I got, and like I said, my family still lives there, so going into it now with such an open mind and the experiences that I've had over the years, I still get that same, like, warmth, but I'm gonna put a pin in that sentence because some weird stuff has happened since my cousins have had kids, and my aunt is now a grandma doing the same thing with a whole new generation of kids.
Yeah, and still have an activity.
So the last thing that kind of was strange that happened in the house was, that stands out to me in a memory is my grandma got us, those music boxes you have to, like, crank and then open the lid?
Hmm.
So I was a dancer growing up, and she got me a music box like that with a little ballerina in it and the mirror, and you could put your jewelry in there, and I don't know what happened to it, but I'm kind of glad if my mom donated it because I think it would bring up a lot of really spooky memories for me. But she got gifts for all 4 of us, and I remember that that would go off in the middle of the night all the time. And I don't know if it was George, I don't know if it was something else because we lived oh, sorry, I hit my mic. But we lived in the basement suite, so to speak, downstairs.
Uh-huh.
So that was not related to the hallway at all, but still kind of annoying and spooky in true horror movie sense,
Yeah.
because that's a total trope in horror movies is
Sure.
music boxes, but I'm like,
Absolutely.
is it a trope because it's true and it happens all the time?
I
So
actually had a music box that had had a turtle on it, and I can remember as a kid, don't remember what ages, but I do now that you mention it, I do remember every once in a while having that just like go and make one tone, you know, just ting,
yeah,
whatever
like
the
the
music was. I
spring
don't
or something was like
Yeah, and,
yeah.
did it just land just right after the last time it played, and it was just barely hanging on, and a little bit of movement in the room could have, I don't know, but yeah, it always kinda was like, "Why'd
Yeah,
that play?"
that would happen randomly, and then there was 2 instances that I remember it being fully open in the middle of the night and, like, like, making music. I think it was, like, a tone or a song from the Nutcracker, if I remember correctly,
Oh.
but you had to wind it and open it for it to make those noises, and
Oh,
yeah. So, deeply unsettling, and then when I eventually outgrew that, my parents got me a I'm gonna sound so ridiculous here, a boom box. I hope some of your listeners know what I'm talking about. It
I
was a
had one.
tape player, a radio, and then a CD player on top, and it was, like, the coolest thing you could ever have as a kid at the time. I had one of those, and it had a huge power button that you would, like, indent push in. And I remember there was a couple of instances that that would go off in the middle of the night as well, and my mom and dad used to work night shifts from time to time, so we would sleep upstairs a lot, but it was still in my room downstairs. And I remember my aunt actually thought that somebody had broken into the house because it was blaring. I think it was, like, Good Charlotte or something I was listening to at the time. That music downstairs, it was, like, 1 or 2:30 in the morning, and she thought that somebody had broken in because she knew my parents were working and me and my
Yeah.
brother were upstairs, and she ran downstairs. No one was there. The door, like, wasn't ajar, there was nothing moved, but the music was just blaring.
Was it at a volume that you would typically listen to your music at?
Um,
Or
as an angsty child, probably. Like, like, it was probably just that button was pushed in,
Right.
but very unsettling for the middle of the night when no one's
Yeah.
downstairs. Either way, so but those are, like, some of the weird happenings. I mean, I could talk about that house forever. I'm sure my cousins will tell me new stories tomorrow about instances that happened to them, but just very, very spooky. And to close that kind of chapter, my cousins, the 2 that grew up there, they have 3 kids between them of their own now. So my aunt's kinda doing that grandma life, and
Yeah.
in between us moving out and in between the kids having kids, there was almost a pause in the activity in the house when it was just my aunt and uncle, like, nothing really weird was happening there until the kids came into the picture. And
Really?
there's always the theory that sometimes dark energies feed off of young energy. I don't know if you've ever heard that theory. And maybe
Yeah.
George came back to kind of protect my second cousins all over again, but, um,
What ages were they?
they are at the time that it started kicking back up again,
Yeah.
5 and 2.
Oh, that's pretty early.
Yeah, so, the two-year-olds are twins, and I'm gonna not use her name, but the girl twin of the 2, she's like a little Wednesday Addams type now. Like, she's always been a spooky kid, and I remember, because I live here now, visiting the island a couple of times, and she would just stare down the hallway, like, deadpan, just stare, and I was like, "I don't wanna freak you out because 'cause you're 2, but what are you seeing?" Like, are you seeing the same thing that maybe made me really uncomfortable as a kid and not wanna go to the end of the hallway? Or, like, because 'cause I'm a firm believer that, kids and animals have such an open mind, and, like, I always make the joke on our show, when you had a an imaginary friend as a kid. I'm like, "Is that a real
Exactly.
ghost?" Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm like,
Exactly.
"What are you seeing?" Like, I was so intrigued. I'm like, "I wanna ask you, but you speak very little words right now, and I also don't wanna make you cry." So
Right. Yeah,
but she almost seemed petrified the way that she was looking at it, like, just
I agree with that analogy. I do think that, and I think that's a great point that you make is, so many kids have imaginary friends, and obviously they have open imaginations and you know make believe and all that stuff, but it's so common, and it really makes me think with as un I'm going to say this, and I don't really mean it to be an indictment on what society is doing to us with our water and fluoride and all that stuff, but their brains are so open and uncalcified, um, and their skulls are considerably thinner, and the soft spot that children have, so their head can compress as it's coming through the birth canal. Um, there is a correlation between where that soft spot is and where the pineal gland is in
that's
the center of,
exactly where I thought you were going with that.
yeah.
Yeah, your,
So
so to speak, third eye.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I personally I would not be surprised at all if that was a component to it.
And this particular child is 7 now, and I kind of wanna like, I need to ask my cousin, of course, if she would be okay with me asking her, but just, like, if she remembers anything as a kid in the same way that we remember things growing up there. Um, I think I've always been too embarrassed and, like, scared because of the nature of, like, a Catholic family making jokes about these things to actually ask my cousins if they felt anything darker or if they were also, like, really afraid to go to that corner or if it was just me, which is why, some of our mutual friends have suggested that maybe I am more open and, like, I should
Well,
explore that a
I mean,
little bit more.
I think there's a hesitancy of people to say that they're open or they're sensitive or they're, you know because you get the eye rolls and
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
but I do think that all people are sensitive, some more to other extent more extent than others. But the way you're brought up, the conditioning, the environment that you grow up in, oh, quit being silly, those are childish things, time to start acting like a grown, a young girl or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Those things all come into play when it comes to things like that. So, and believe me, I'm not saying that anybody was being subversive in their attempt to get you to stop paying attention to that stuff, but I grew up always having an interest in all this stuff, everything from UFOs at a really early age, all the way through, everything that I cover in my show. The one thing I can say is that my parents never, like, you got to stop. This ends tonight. No more monster movies. No more, quit talking about UFOs. There's no Bigfoot. They were not those people. They certainly didn't encourage me to, you know, continue looking into things, but they never dissuade me from it. And I think that's why I've remained open to these things for so long.
Yeah, and you have such a cool platform for people coming on and telling these stories. And not only does it give validity to what's happening and what can happen in the spiritual realm, but it also brings a certain comfort as well, even though your show is called uNcomfortable. Like, it's a comfort knowing that other people experience those things as well.
Yeah. Man, I wish I'd
So
had $1 for every time somebody has said that even though the show's called Uncomfortable, you make me very comfortable.
well, you pointed out that like my voice was a little shaky at the beginning there. Yes, I'm always
Yeah.
nervous to come on a new show, but there's a little bit of like untapped fear there as well that we made jokes about it as kids. So,
Right.
I mean, I'm interested to kind of explore
Well,
that a little
it was.
further.
I mean, I don't want to
No, call
make
me
you feel
out.
like it was noticeable,
Yeah.
and it
And
was
I've
like,
told this story 100 times, and I swear that has never happened.
see, and that's one of the indicators to me. You know, if you have somebody on a show and you don't interrupt, I get accused of interrupting my guests too much, and I apologize, but
I disagree, but all
that's
right.
how I that's how I carry on a conversation. If you bring up an interesting point, let's dig into that.
Yeah, of
Let's not
course.
bypass it
That's what makes it a conversation.
and risk the chance of me forgetting to bring it back up. But when you talk to somebody, and it's even gotten better now with the advent of the video calls where I can look at a screen and I can see your face when you're saying what you're saying. If you're telling me something and there's not any emotion, if there's not any um, where I can look at your eyes and I can see that you're reliving that in some instance to some extent, um, are you just making shit up or are you telling me the truth? So when I see emotion and I can hear it in your voice, um, that's that's always a good indicator to me that they are relaying their truth.
Mhm.
Now whether you misconstrued what was going on and didn't understand what was going on and it really wasn't that, nobody
No,
know
I
no,
agree completely, and maybe you bring that out in your listeners too, like, you get it. You
maybe
can be safe here to tell those types of stories,
yeah.
which good on you.
Well, I appreciate
Like you
that.
said,
Thank you.
you've had your own spooky experiences, hence why you host such a great show.
A lot. A lot of shit.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to come on our show next and tell your stories,
Oh,
but
I'd be happy to. Happy to. Just
I'll
let
tell
me
you
know
about the
when.
restaurant a little bit if you're
Yeah,
okay with that.
let's hear about that.
So, I know that they have a branch in the United States as well. But the story is that there was two brothers that started the old spaghetti factory. One stayed in Canada and one went to the United States. And they're completely different chains as far as I've been told. The ones within the lower mainland here where I live are pretty much cookie cutters of themselves, but they have one interesting aspect is that the decor is completely antique. Hence the name Old Spaghetti Factory, I suppose. So they have like old stained glass lamps, like hardwood furniture, kind of like a hodgepodge of furniture that they can find at silent auctions and antique stores and that kind of stuff. And it's very cool. There's also like old paintings and mirrors, and it's a spooky place if you believe in the paranormal, or it's just really, old and kind of tacky like your grandma's house if you don't. So, whatever way you want to look at it. But like I mentioned earlier in my story, like energy can attach to objects as well. And when you put a bunch of old objects in one space, it's like a paranormal playground, in my opinion, at least.
I don't disagree with that. The one thing that you said that kind of caught my ear was, first of all, being all antiques, um, but mirrors.
Now, keep that in mind for the three locations that I'm going to tell you about in the restaurant because they all involve mirrors. So I worked
I,
there from when I was
sometimes I hate
16.
sometimes I hate being me.
No, you know what? It's so serendipitous and like perfect placement that you wouldn't even know. But the one location at the front of the restaurant that was a paranormal hotspot was the host desk, like right when you walk in. and there was a huge, like, antique desk, and then behind the desk, there was a mirror that hung there, and there was, like, a wall, and you could go to, like, either side of the restaurant. And I started off as a busser/host because you can't serve when you're under a drinking age, obviously, and I was about 15, 16 years old when I got the job. And as most people that have worked in restaurants know, those are the people that are there the latest. The servers get to go home, relatively early. The kitchen gets to go home relatively early when you close. It's the dishwashers and the bussers that are kinda there till the bitter end.
Right.
And at the time, I was saving up for a car, so I would always, offer to stay as late as possible because I wanted to make the hours. And we had this little sign that you would put on the host desk at the end of the night because, customers still need to be able to leave. You can't lock the door every time, saying that we were closed. And I remember on at least 6 or 7 occasions, that sign would be, like, flown off the desk. And I never actually saw it happen. I just heard it happen several times because you would hear the and slide across the tile floor. And it was like an old picture frame. I'm pretty sure they got it at the dollar store every time, but the glass was always broken or like a part of the frame was always broken. So it came off the desk and hit the floor with some type of force. I don't know if the ghost didn't want us to be closed. I don't know. Or if it's like, this is my desk, you can't put this here. I have no idea, but something very strange that would occur. And in addition to that, at an early time period in the restaurant, the bathrooms were another hot spot. Obviously, there's mirrors in bathrooms, but the hallway that would lead to the bathrooms, there was a section of tables that were in front of the hallway and a huge mirror on the wall beside the hallway leading down there. And there was 2 bathrooms on the left, a boys and a girls, and then at the very end of the hallway, there was, like, a family-friendly/wheelchair accessible bathroom that was more private. The light in that bathroom would turn on its own all the time. Like, at the end of the night, obviously, you shut off all the lights. There was occasions from when I was 15 to when did I stop working there? 25, that light would be on its own. And I'm like,
Ugh.
"Really? You're gonna make me walk all the way down there and turn it off again? Like, come on." And I tend to try and find humor and stuff that I'm uncomfortable with, but, when you're in a restaurant alone at the end of the night and there's, like, 5 or 6 people left, you don't wanna walk down a creepy old hallway with
Right.
old
Yeah.
paintings and mirrors and turn off a light, like, no. So,
So let me ask you this. Were were there experiences going on there before you started working there?
yes,
Okay.
uh,
All right.
the general manager at the
Good.
restaurant warned me, in fact, on
Right.
my first shift, which, you would have to do, like, a perimeter check at the end of the night to make sure there was no one still in the bathrooms, and I remember going into the boys' bathroom first, there was 3 stalls, and just kinda doing, like, the little door push, no one's hiding in there. You'd, wipe down the counters, kinda push down on the garbage, make sure it was, presentable for the cleaners, which in hindsight is a very funny, aspect to restaurant closing, because they were gonna clean it anyway, but, and, in the girls' washroom, there was 2 rows of 4 stalls, and you would do the same thing. And I remember I was probably 16 years old, and I pushed open one of the stalls, and it pushed back and, like, slammed. And I thought initially
Oh,
maybe the door didn't latch and I had accidentally walked in on someone. And I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And then I stood there for a minute, and I didn't hear anything. And so I looked underneath the stall, I didn't see any feet. And I was like, "That was weird," and then I pushed it again and it opened fine on its own, so I was like, "Oh, okay." And this was probably, like, a month of me working there, and I was so freaked out that I went to the general manager And I was like, this just happened and I don't wanna go in there anymore, like, can somebody come with me when I do this? Like, that was really scary." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, that happens sometimes." I was like, "What?
Wow.
How do you just say that to a teenager?" It's like, "Meh, yeah, that's kinda normal around here." And, the old spaghetti factory, you can look it up, and especially in Canada, that chain of restaurants is known as being haunted.
Is it really?
Specifically, the head office and the first location that was opened over, like, an old, like, railway system. Like, it's an old warehouse that it was built in, and we used to, especially as managers, you would kind of swap locations sometimes or, like, cover where it was needed for a few days
Yeah.
if there was any shortages, and there was a couple of shifts that I worked at that location in Gastown. I don't live anywhere near there, so I'm okay with saying Gastown, but, I would work at that head office location a couple of times, and do, like, management training when I got older, and there was one instance of they used to do parades down there once a year. You know, you'd dress up in old garb. You know, there was like they kind of celebrated the history of that location, like 19, I would say probably like 1940s, 1950s style. And there's one known ghost at that location who's a little boy, and he wears a gray hat, and he's like probably like 10 or 11 years old. And I remember, like, towards the end of the night closing being like, "Oh, like, where's your mom?" kinda thing, like, "You can't be running around the restaurant, you know, we're closing soon." And it was one of the days of the parade, and so he was dressed in appropriate period clothing, so I thought that maybe he was at the parade during the day and came to eat with his
Right.
family at night. And I didn't know anything about this until I had actually done an episode on this particular location, and because I was so interested in it after working there for 8 years. And he didn't say anything, and he just kinda, like, ran away, and I was like, "Okay, cool. Go find your mom. Have a good night." And then the next night, one of the servers was helping set tables while they were waiting for their last couple tables to leave and pay them, and the old like, that particular location, because it's in an old warehouse, the sections are almost like rooms. And so she was in one section kind of cleaning up all the tables and setting, and she saw the little boy run past, and she was like, "Oh, hey, buddy, like, you can't be running in the restaurant, like, it's not safe." And he ran and ducked under one of the booths. And she, like, you know, walked over to see what he was doing, and she was like, "Hey, you can't be playing in here." No one was there. And so she was like, "This," you know, she was telling me about it. We were polishing cutlery, and she's like, "Yeah, this happened. That was really weird." And I was like, "Does this little boy have a gray hat?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, I don't think that's a real boy." Like, in this timeline, current alive child, like, very spooky. And the fact that he didn't say anything,
Yeah.
that he just, like,
What
disappeared
was his appearance?
constantly.
What was his appearance? I mean, did he look,
Um,
solid? Were his
yeah,
colors
completely
muted? Were
solid.
he
No, not at all.
just
I
just
legitimately
normal?
thought it was a real kid, and so did she.
Yeah, interesting.
And from what I've researched, apparitions like that are very rare. Like, very, very rare.
Yeah,
So,
I would have to agree.
yeah, and if you look up the Gastown location for the spaghetti factory, you'll see other sightings of this little boy by
Really.
customers and other staff members that have worked there. So, super spooky. Needless to say, I didn't really wanna go back there and do any training or any coverage after that, and I kinda stuck to my own location. And, you know, we had our own weird stuff that would happen at the end of the night. Mine was always the bar room. That was where extra alcohol was stored, of course, but it was also where the key panel for all the lights were in the restaurant, as well as where the alarm panel was to set the alarm and leave at the end of the night. And because I'm a crazy person, I used to work a lot of double and triple shifts at the restaurant.
Jesus.
while I was going to school because I was only available 3 days a week at the time. So I would do cash for the restaurant in the morning, serve during the day, and then manage at night, close, lock up, and leave. So I was there for like 12 and a half hours. And I would often forget to park my car at the front of the restaurant, which you're supposed to do when you're the last person leaving for safety reasons. And I would park around the back usually. And there was like 2 or 3 times that I would set the alarm, close off all the lights, shut that door, and leave. And I would go to the back of the restaurant. And by the time I had driven around to the front, the light would be on in the bar room and the door would be open.
And the
And I'm like,
door would be open?
for the love of, like, come on. Like, so I'd have to turn off my car, turn off the alarm, go inside, reset all of the stuff, and leave again. And I would get in trouble a few times by the general manager the next day and be like, "Oh, you forgot to turn off the lights, or you forgot to shut the barroom door. Like there's a lot of product in there." And I'm like, "No, definitely did twice, sometimes 3 times before I would just give up and leave."
Wow.
Very strange. Yeah. And my husband, funny enough, that is how him and I met. He was the kitchen manager at the restaurant, and his was always the taps in the restaurant in the kitchen in the morning. Sometimes he would come in and the taps would just be like full running.
Oh, the water taps.
Yeah. There was like 4 or 5 sinks in the kitchen and they would just be
See,
going.
that's crazy because one of my experiences when my fiance was living with me here in this house was I basically was getting out of the shower and the sink just across from the tub, both hot and the cold water taps were completely open to the
Yeah.
point where
Running at
to the
full max.
yeah, and when I got out of the shower, the water was just about to run over.
Oh no.
Yeah, and when I went to shut them off, it was everything I could do to get them to break free and to shut them off. I mean, they were
That's
cranked
crazy.
open.
Like
Yeah,
wrenched. Yeah, he said the
yeah,
same thing. That's wild. So it was almost like they were targeting like the areas that we were in the most, like with me starting there with the host sign, the bathrooms as a busser, when I was
yeah.
bartending, the bar room, and
They
like him
wanted to
with
be
the kitchen. It was
noticed.
very strange. Yes. Which is fine, you want to make yourself known. I actually have a photo because there was no windows or anything at the end of the hallway where the light would sometimes turn on. I captured an orb on a picture that's like long and
Really
oblong and blue. I'll send it to you because it's kind of spooky.
interesting. Yeah, I'll
Um,
put it in with the episode.
yeah, so just it's weird because I remember being like, okay, this is ridiculous. And I took the picture to be like proof that I turn this freaking light off all the time and it is on right now. And then I looked at it afterwards and I was like, oh, that's weird. Because I was 16, I would never have thought anything of it until I started researching paranormal entities, watching
Right.
ghost
Yeah.
shows, all of that stuff, and I learned what orbs are. So, or what
Interesting.
that term possibly meant. So I will send that to you because it was
All
super
right.
weird. And then the last kind of experiences that I have are in the house that I currently live in. Um,
The one
it's
where the lights were flashing before we started recording.
yes. So it's not even like a super old building that I live in. It was built in I want to say 1986 or 1987.
Yeah, please
And
say it's not super old because that like a couple of years after I graduated high school.
I
So
mean, in terms of wiring and infrastructure, you are great.
yeah,
But like you hear of stuff like that happening in houses that are like from the Victorian period or like
right. Yeah.
even older usually. So um I just thought it was interesting. When we bought our condo, this is the first condo that we've owned and we've lived here for about 7 years. In the hallway, when you go to like enter your unit, the lock and like the door are like completely upside down. like the locking mechanism. So when you go to open your door, you have to turn the key the wrong way to unlock your door.
Okay.
And I thought that that was super strange
Yeah.
because I'm like, was somebody like drunk the day that they installed just our door? All the other ones are fine. And I was doing some reading about, I don't even remember when. I think I was reading about the Sarah Winchester house.
Yeah.
And they used to turn locks and door handles upside down to confuse spirits.
Confuse them. Yeah.
Okay, so you did know that. I I
Yeah.
I was like, maybe that's why they did this. Didn't work because weird shit happens in here still. But that was weird red flag number 1 when moving in here. And then me and Sierra jovially call it the hair pulling ghost on our show.
Okay.
I have really long hair. And sometimes it feels like, you know, when you're a little kid and you're lower down and you go to, like, tug on someone's shirt or something to get their attention? Well,
Sure.
I feel that on the end of my hair sometimes. And it's happened probably at this point, like, 7 times, so it's not like a weird coincidence where my hair is getting snagged on something. I'll be, at the kitchen cooking dinner and I'll just feel like a tug, and I'm like, "Oh," like, I'll turn around sometimes and think it's my husband just being a shit, and no one is there. And the most unsettling times that it's happened has been when I've been sleeping, um, out of, like, a dead sleep, just yank while I'm laying in bed. Um, so it's strange, and where I record is in, like, the corner of my bedroom, so there's a hallway seems to be the theme of the episode, where you can see like our closet and then our ensuite directly from where I'm sitting. And a lot of people will say when I'm recording, I'll do this to like listen or I'll look over because I see stuff in the corner of my eye all the time, almost like something small, like running, like a shadow. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So that's my little kid ghost. And there's also like a heavier set of like walking noises that I hear quite often, to the point that when we first moved in here, my husband and I were laying in bed, getting ready to go to sleep for the night, and I heard somebody in our living room. And I thought that somebody was walking around in our living room. And he's like, "Well, we're not the top floor, we're the second from the top floor. Like maybe it's our neighbors upstairs." And I was like,
Right.
"No, I grew up underneath my family as a kid because we lived in the basement suite." I'm like, "I know what footsteps above you sound like." And there are certain floorboards in our living room that creak when you walk on them, and it would be like that, and then like step, 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 really heavy. So I'm like, "Can you please go check that somebody is not in our house right now?" I hear it maybe once or twice a month now, like almost like somebody's pacing. I
That's
don't
pretty
make
regular.
I don't make Kevin check anymore because I know that that's what it is.
Is he
Watch, like,
hearing
the
it?
one usually I think he's heard it a couple of times, but he's chalked it up to somebody being upstairs, and then he'll go out and look, and he's like, "No one's there. You were just overreacting." He is a non-believer in anything paranormal, so
Really?
yeah, despite his wife, yeah, very strange, but, yeah, he's like, "You're just being silly,
How
no
does
one's
that
in there."
how can that happen?
How do they
How can
find
how
each
can
other?
you have the wealth of experiences that you've had?
And
And
he's had too at the restaurant, like, he just
well, yeah, see,
I don't
that's
know if
that's
it's, like,
that that's
more
that
it's comforting for him to just, like, brush it aside, like, I think
it's
maybe
that
to an
disconnect
extent
that
it
we were
scares him.
yeah, it's that disconnect we were talking about that
Yeah,
people they'll choose to ignore it or they'll replace it with, it makes more sense that this happened and um, yeah, I don't understand how people can
I don't
reconcile
either.
that as being something else, but
You
they
mentioned
do.
your girlfriend during our recording, does she believe in
Mhm.
ghosts?
Um, the whole paranormal podcast thing for her is kind of new. So like there's been some things that she's listened to my show and like maybe not heard of, um or maybe have heard of but never realized there was the depth of investigation into. Um she doesn't think I'm nuts. So, even though she hasn't really experienced it, she she doesn't think I'm, you know, nutty for believing in it. So, um, does
Yeah.
that mean she's a believer? Um, okay, I'll give you an example. So I've done an investigation at a cottage that my daughter lives in with her boyfriend. We did it about a year ago, and then we did it again about a month ago. And my girlfriend was with me this last time, and my daughter had been in the cottage. She was sitting down on the ground, had a little bin of plastic toys, and I had a I had a portal box going. I had a SLS camera, um, filming her and the background, seeing if we were picking up any stick figures of anything. And I got to give her credit. She manned up. She was in there by herself and she was asking questions, and we were recording audio and had the portal box going and everything. And she was getting some responses on the portal box. And I don't know, I left her in there for maybe 20-25 minutes. And then I went in there to take my turn. And I sat down, was asking because we kept getting indications that there were the possibility of two younger spirits there, kids. So I was trying to encourage them to come over by me and play with the blocks and all that. Um, and then I started getting some very very good clean responses from the portal box. Um, and then she came in and she sat down at the kitchen table or the dining room table, which was right in. She was behind all of the equipment, but within my eyesight. And I heard I heard my dad's name, Ray, and that kind of triggered me a little bit. And I was like, I started asking questions about,
Yeah, it caught your attention.
and there's something that my dad always called me all through growing up, and it was, "Hey boy, hey boy, hey hey boy, go cut the grass. Hey
Aw,
boy, go watch the car.
yeah,
Hey boy, let's go fishing. Hey boy, and
that's sweet.
I like it was never. It sounds disrespectful, but it wasn't. It was just like his pet name for me.
Yeah, no,
Um,
not at all. That's really sweet.
and and I asked the portal box. I said, if my dad's here, what did he always call me? And it said, boy. And so everything's being recorded, and you can hear Stacy go, "Oh," because she knew. So you know, and then consequently, and this just dawned on me. Um, Consequently, like immediately after that, I kind of leaned back. I was sitting Indian style. I don't think you can say that anymore, can you? I was sitting cross-legged.
Crisscross applesauce.
I was sitting cross-legged on the floor, and I kind of leaned back a little bit, and I said, "Oh my God, I am so glad you were in here to hear that." And
Aw.
she kind of started giggling a little bit. I think it was a little nervous, giggle, um, and she immediately says, "Oh, the screen on the SLS camera says that your battery's out." And I was like, just now, just in this conversation. See, this is what's so great about conversation. And when you start delving into, and it's like, holy shit, the battery died right after I got a response that was, boy, direct answer to the question that I had asked just before that. So yeah.
That's wild.
So I don't think that I don't think she is as, because she doesn't have that much experience with it. So I don't know that it's really a fair assessment to say she believes or doesn't believe. I think she, I think she was shocked by that response, and like I said, she was sitting right there. So, um, and again, I don't. She doesn't think I'm crazy. So, excuse me. I think there's some trust in my trust in me that I would not be leading her astray by talking about silly shit that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
So
of course. Well, that's kind of like a spooky, beautiful story and a way of showing that you
yeah,
can still be present to stuff happening and not necessarily go hardcore belief into it.
yeah,
So maybe I misspoke in saying Kevin doesn't believe in it, but I don't think he wants to give it the attention. Like, I
and
think
I
he
think that
would rather just ignore it and brush it off, kinda
yeah,
like my aunt did as a kid. Like, "Oh, that's, it's just whatever. It's just George, it's fine."
yeah, and I think that's probably where she's got. Excuse me, where she's kind of at. It she doesn't really ever. She went and investigated a haunted cottage with me. So, not to say that she doesn't
Hey,
have any
that's
interest in it, but
that's a
it's not.
keeper right there.
Yeah, oh yeah, she's a keeper. No way she's getting away. Duct tape, rope, whatever it takes. Uh,
Hey, you're talking to a true crime podcaster. Oh, I'm
uh,
joking. No, that's funny.
but she, she doesn't shy away from it. But I don't think it's something that she has a lot of interest in. So
Yeah, that's
the
fair.
the idea of her like digging into it and starting to watch all the different ghost shows and all the documentaries about Bigfoot and all that.
I love that. Yeah, I would say Kevin's my Kevin.
Yeah,
We know a mutual friend, Kevin, is in the same boat, so but, if I ever ask him to go and check the living room for me, he will.
yeah. You have to.
And yeah, you gotta put on a brave face and carry your bat with you and hope that no one's actually in there. But, that
So,
actually is a perfect segue into my last paranormal experience in the house that's not regularly occurring and has actually you are the first podcast I am telling this to.
hell yeah, here we go. Let's go.
It's been happening over the last month. There's been 2 instances so far that I have picked up on as being quite strange, and that is the mimic topic, and I get all scared and like I wanna crawl into my shell every time I talk about it, but
I'm gonna stop looking at the camera and I'm gonna start looking at the screen that you're on because if shit starts jumping off your wall and the lights start flickering,
again, yeah, it's flickered a couple of times while we've been talking, and it only happens when I'm recording. And I think to a certain extent, because of the dark subject matter that Sierra and I talk about on our show, I'm sure that that brings up and stirs all sorts of energy. But this is different. This isn't consistent. This is just super eerie. So the first instance happened when sorry, I love taking baths. And I was in the bathtub reading my book. I make it a whole thing. I got the glass of wine, the bath, the bubbles, like the book, all of that stuff. And I have an alarm on my phone that goes off at 9 o'clock every night to take my medication because I have ADHD. I'm known to forget. And it was not with me because I was trying to have like a true mental detox. And I'm known if I have my phone with me, I'm going to do podcast stuff. So I'm like, I got to put it away for a second and actually relax. And I had it on my bedside table in my room. And if you walk out my bedroom door to the right, there's a bathroom there, and that's where the bathtub is. The one in our room only has a shower. So I was like, "Oh, crap, I gotta go turn that off," and my husband's a big gamer, so he usually has noise canceling headphones on, so even if I were to be like, "Kevin, go turn it off," he probably wouldn't hear me, so I got out of the tub, stepped onto the bath mat, did this little, like, shuffle to the edge of the carpet, and quickly turned it off, and went back into the bathroom, and I'm standing at the entrance to the bathroom, and I heard, "Baby!" And I was like I turned around expecting Kevin to be right behind me. He calls me baby, and in, like, a silly the way that I just imitated it, voice when he's kinda giving me shit or being like a goof, and I thought that he was gonna give me a hard time for, being all soapy and tracking water everywhere. And so I turned around to be like, "What?" And he wasn't there, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird." And so I tried to brush it off, and I was like, "No, that's weird." Like, it literally sounded right directly behind me. And so I dried off a little bit, and his games room is around the corner in the hallway. And I poked my head in, and I was like, "Did you just yell baby?" And he was like, "No." He was, like, in the middle of playing some sort of first person shooter. And I was like, "Okay, that's weird." Went back, did my bath thing. And then 2 days later, another instance happened, Kevin's voice as well, and oh, okay. So, I'm really scared because I don't know I'm this is not something I've experienced before in all of my paranormal experiences, and from what I've read, it's not something to be messed with, and you're really supposed to ignore it, but when it sounds like somebody that you live with and love, how do you
Yeah.
ignore it? So so, I don't even remember what I was doing. I think I was editing or something, and I always have one earphone off just in case he calls for me or needs me or whatever, and it sounded like, I mentioned when you and I were just chatting at the beginning, I have a rabbit that's free range in my house, and he's, like, 1.5 pounds, like, he's tiny, and he is known to step out. And you gotta do the whole stumble thing around him so that you don't step on him. I don't know if you have pets, but they seem to
A
have a death
dog.
wish at times. Yeah, you trip over them all the time. And my husband's a really large dude, so I heard, like, the and, like, a, and I was like, "Oh," like, it, like, sounded like him, sounded like exactly like a noise that I've heard before when he tries not to step on Thumper. And so I
Thumper.
went
You
his name
named
is
your rabbit
Thumper.
Thumper.
Yeah. Okay, so quick defense on
Originality.
that. Quick defense on that. So he's small, like I mentioned. We originally had another name picked out for him, but when he scratches his ears, his foot hits the ground like Thumper. So I was like,
Of
gotta
course he
do it.
does.
I gotta do it. It's perfect. So I ran out and I was like, "Oh, are you okay?" Expecting to see him in the living room because it was so loud and, like, thinking that he had almost tripped over him, and I was like, "Oh, are you okay? Like, it sounded like you hurt yourself." And he was in the games room again playing video games, and I was like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Did you like, what?" "Did you not just, like, fall in the living room almost?" And he was like, "No." So, I was like, "Okay, that's unsettling." And then I reached out to our podcast friend group and I was like, "This just happened twice now, and this is super weird." And it was David who was like, "No, you ignore that, but also keep us updated."
But also tell me every time it happens.
Yeah, but also tell me every detail. And I know that there's been instances of mimics being recorded online that are much scarier than what I've described. But that's like 2 for 2, dead pan, like, my husband's voice, his mannerisms, his everything, and so I'm like, "Oh god." And I don't know if because, like, I went and checked on him right away, just kinda having my suspicions, if that stopped anything from happening, like, again, like, directly in the moment, because I know that sometimes it can be repeated and,
How
like,
long
not
ago was the
addressing.
last how
The
long ago
last
was the
one
last incident?
was a week and a half ago.
That's pretty fresh.
Yeah, so I'm just like, I don't know what to do, or maybe 2 weeks ago, because I told Sierra about it, and she's on an algorithm on TikTok that's mimic heavy, and she's like, "Whatever you do, ignore it." And I was like, "How do you ignore something that sounds like somebody you love?" I don't know how to do that. So nothing, knock on wood, nothing has happened yet again. But that's not to say that it might not happen again. Yeah, I'm a little unsettled and not really sure what to do.
I've got a I've got a wonderful friend of mine. She is an archbishop with the old Catholic Church, a much more liberal and all accepting Catholic Church in Chicago. Um, I've had her on the episodes several times now. Her name's Archbishop Christina Rake, and um, she has been a paranormal investigator for a lot of years, and very unusual to find somebody who is as deeply rooted in the church as she is, um, and still openly talks about the reality of paranormal and stuff like that. She also is gifted, so I feel like maybe that would be a good avenue for me to put you in touch with her, because
Yeah,
she
absolutely.
may be able to help you with that.
Give some advice.
Um, Advice, and probably be able to help rid you of the issue,
Okay. You know what? I'm
because
open to anything.
when I say she's gifted, it's pretty remarkable. So
Wow. Okay, yeah. No, please do. I mean, on the one hand, the curiosity in me is like, is this gonna happen again? But then on the other hand, I'm like, I've everything I've read, that's not something to be messed with. So
you've had two experiences. I would chalk it up to, I've had two experiences and I don't need any more.
yeah.
My recommendation would be to go ahead and rid that from your
Yeah.
lives.
No, yeah, please put me in touch.
I will.
'Cause
I will.
I don't wanna play that game anymore. Also, it's, like, not fun to hear somebody you care about sound like they're hurt, or,
Right. Yeah.
the first one was spooky because it was so,
Well,
like
and you're in a vulnerable position
exact.
too.
Yeah, of course, like, I just got out of the
Yeah.
bathtub. Yeah,
So
like
that's creepy. That's creepy in
yeah.
itself.
Yeah, so and both have sounded exactly where they should sound, and it's just, "No. No, thank you."
Yeah.
So, what do I say all the time on the show? That's gross. I don't wanna deal with it.
I will get you hooked up with her, and
Thank you.
yeah, I would think
Um,
she should be able to help you.
thank you.
I don't have any doubt.
But, yeah, those are, most of my spooky experiences in a nutshell. I've definitely had some more over the years, but, nothing super crazy or consistent, just, like, one-off weirdnesses here and there, but,
Well,
yeah,
it's funny,
I've
like
kinda
we talked
talked your
about.
ear off for an hour and a half, so
Well, it's funny that like when we talked about people being open to it. Um, I think some people will make the mistake and say, "Well, you just think everything's paranormal," and okay, fair enough. It's not the case, but I think to some extent they have a little bit. They're on the right path. They're not going down the path, but they're kind of on the right path, because I think when you remain open to these things, um, you do recognize when there is something that's happening that's not quite natural. And they don't always have to be something that's earth shattering and, oh my God, it scared the hell out of me.
I think that's what
The
makes it even scarier is that it's so, like, on a level of normalcy that you could either brush it off or believe that what you experienced is a paranormal experience. Like,
Yeah.
it's so on the edge, you know? It's not a horror movie, like you said.
I mean, maybe your rabbit knows how to talk, right? You named him Thumper, for Christ's sake. Pretty sure Thumper talked in the cartoon.
Yeah, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. That goes for podcasts too, guys.
I swear my dog is a skinwalker.
Oh, no.
Some of the times he looks at me like there's something else going on inside there. He's not just a golden doodle.
He's
there's
much
something
deeper than that.
Yeah. Alecia, it's been wonderful talking to you. You've been a joy to get into this with. Before we get out of here, Twisted and Uncorked. Let everybody know where they can find you and give them the lowdown on what all the topics you guys cover.
Yeah, thank you. We are a All Things Twisted podcast. We have an uncorked element in that we are a little kooky ourselves, but we also do our topics over wine or sangria. And we cover everything from true crime to paranormal to conspiracies, cults, cryptids, anything twisted and weird in the world. We have probably covered it on the show or will cover it at some point. We release new episodes every Tuesday, and we have over 160 episodes for you to binge. So if you like all things spooky, I'm sure you will find something on our show that you will enjoy. I record the show with my best friend in the United States, Sierra, and I am over in Canada, so that's kind of a fun little element to our friendship, personalities, and we call it American-Canadian thing. She'll tease me for my accent and vice versa. But we have a lot of fun on there when we can. And yeah, we've got some pretty cool guests that have also been on this show. So yeah, come and check us out.
Yep. Drops new episodes on Tuesday. So as soon as you get done listening to Uncomfortable, head over to Twisted and Uncorked and get your murder mystery and all your weird twisted uncorkings and
exactly. You can find pretty much anything to do with us at twistedanduncorked.com. You can find all the links there.
I was waiting to hear what the Uncorked was. I was making the assumption that it had something to do with wine. Could have been moonshine, but I was guessing wine.
A double entendre. Wine and we're a little strange at the same time.
Alecia, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully we can do this again sometime. Like I said,
yes, thank you so much for having me.
Just let me know when you want me on, and I'm happy to do it. So,
thank you so much again, Eric. This was a lot of fun.
Good.
And yeah, please get me in touch with your friend so I can be rid of at least that part.
I will. I'm moving my daughter tomorrow, so if I don't do it tonight, I'll definitely do it on Sunday. If you haven't got her information from me on Sunday, remind me, because I got an old brain. So.
Sounds good. No, you're just a good dad helping your kid out.
Again, Alecia, it's been a pleasure. Go head over, check out Twisted and Uncorked with Alecia and Sierra. Until next week, my friends, stay uncomfortable. Good night.